Hello, I'm Vicky Young and welcome to Politics Live. Joining me today, Labour MP Rebecca Long-Bailey, political strategist Joe Tanner and Talk TV presenter Samara Gill. Joe, what do you make of what we've heard? I appreciate she hasn't said it to the House of Commons yet, but we've got a lot of details already, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot come out in advance. This is probably one of the better communications efforts from the government, because there's been a sort of a trail of things and there's been some detail out there, not all the detail. I think you're absolutely right. We still need to see it. But there is a huge problem here around this issue, which is to the point about having a fair system. Yes, it needs to be fair to the British public, but it also needs to be fair to the people that are genuinely fleeing persecution. But the challenge that the government has is that part of that process, and partly wheedling out who's genuine and who isn't, is to that point about the gangs making the UK less attractive. And that does, unfortunately, no matter how we want to play it, it does involve having to up the rhetoric slightly, because you need the messaging to land elsewhere that the UK is not an easy place to come, you know, to jump in a small boat, take your life at risk, pay some lunatic a load of money, and then bring your family on a perilous journey and end up here and think that it's all going to be simple. There is a process that is part of the wider discussion.
It's the so-called pull factors, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're trying to do with this. That's what the sort of botched Rwanda attempt was trying to do. It's what the agreements that the government have been trying to seek now are all about. And I think what everyone has to recognise is, if you just ignore this system and if you allow it to get out of control as it has, then actually what comes next is going to feel more drastic. I think that's just the way that we're stuck with that now. But I do think you're right about the debate. I think for years we've had really polarising debates, and what we're actually seeing is a rise in racism, I think, just tangibly. I mean, anecdotally, I feel it from people I speak to. I feel people are getting more and more frustrated, and it's not good.
But we can't have a system that is essentially designed to deter people without having a system alongside it that shows, right, well, if you come here and you've not been through this process, you will be deported. If there's not an opportunity to apply in a different way, you're still going to see the boats.
And that is the debate, isn't it? Essentially, on one side, you've got the feeling that a lot of people shouldn't be here and perhaps don't have a right to be on. On the other side, you have the sense that everybody that's coming is coming for good reason. And that both things can't be true. There is a bit of both in all of this, which is why this debate is so incredibly difficult for Shabana and others to try and fix. And it will be hard to get through the House of Commons.
Do you think I think
difficult? That's going to be... I mean, this is going to be another huge hill, which, quite frankly, I think it's the right hill to try and climb. But you also... there are so many different feelings. There's so many contradictory views out there. And let's face it, there is not one specific system or approach that is going to please everybody. Everyone's going to have to bend a bit. And ultimately, the money, you're absolutely right. The country's finances are a huge problem. Let's face it also, the government and other political parties are looking at the polls and wondering what the public care about, and therefore what is it that they need to tackle as the big issues of the day.
I do think we're quite literally pearl clutching here when we think about taking their own basically jewellery and other expensive things off them. I don't agree with that as well. I think it's a bit ridiculous. I think we either say what we did in Australia, which is Operation Sovereign Borders. If you try to come to these shores, you will get detained and you will get deported. We shouldn't be doing these sort of soft touch approach policies.
Sounds like a giant pawn shop.
Yeah,
it does sound like we're going to sort of have it here, and once you've paid off whatever, you can have your items back. They can't. The government can't manage an awful lot of what they should be managing. This sounds like slightly more complicated than we need.
And at the moment, genuine refugees are being treated very badly in the context of this quite divisive, toxic debate. We need a system that vets, assesses and does the application process extremely quickly, so that those who are not genuine refugees are deported and sent back to their home countries. At the moment, we don't have a system that's fast enough, that's properly resourced and deals with applications from other countries, as I've said, that stops the need for people to get in boats to come here to try and claim asylum in the first place.
And that is the crux of it, isn't it? You would be on a similar page if you could just get the assessment bit at the beginning right. The debate about what to do afterwards, a lot of people are in the same place. It's about the fact that you're either painting everybody in the wrong way because some are genuine, some aren't, or you're painting them in the right way and being potentially too generous. And that is exactly what the government's trying to navigate, and that is what MPs will be struggling with.
Jo, you can see, in these communities, people don't seem to always want asylum seekers there. This is a pretty big protest in Crowborough.
Yeah, and I think, it's such a change. I keep thinking back to the Homes for Ukraine scheme, where I had somebody come and live in my home, and I had neighbours that came to say hello and ask what they could do to help. And it's such a different setup to where we've got to now, where because of the fact that people genuinely knew what was going on for those communities in Ukraine, knew what was happening for those people. They saw those individuals that arrived and wanted to do anything they could to help. And yet, on the other hand, you get a group of people that are saying quite strongly, we do not want people that are not citizens of the UK while they're waiting for their processing. It wasn't like these Ukrainians had that. They were still temporary basis, but they just don't want them because of what the negative headlines and the feeling of what it's going to do to a community. So the way that people are being moved around, the way people are being housed, quite frankly, whether it's hotels or on sites, it's not working, and communities feel very uncomfortable, and some feel scared, some rightly, some wrongly, but it's their communities too, so that does have to be taken into account.
So it's just on the wealth tax, Jo, I mean, that doesn't seem to be something she's looking at, but what do you think her options are here, the Chancellor?
Well, I mean, it's been called a smorgasbord. It sounds more like a dog's breakfast, I think, in terms of where we've all complained about government comms, and instead of rolling the pitch, they've literally taken a digger and sort of taken up most of the turf, it seems, turned it around and sort of laid it back down again, pretending there's nothing to see. So, we are in extraordinary times in terms of the stuff that's being suggested, being rowed back from. I think it's causing massive uncertainty. To your point about that 60 billion, it was only a couple of years ago that Richard Harrington, Lord Harrington now, who's a chair of an organisation called Make UK, the manufacturers organisation representing the people that make stuff, he was asked by the previous government to do a look into foreign direct investment and what it was that was harming our chances. He said there was 50 billion up for grabs if you just made some of the changes that would help business invest here. Well, we've made that situation worse with, the talking down the country about how grim it was and what Labour inherited. But then since then, the stuff they've done to make things more unattractive for business to invest. So that gap's probably actually significantly bigger now. If you then go after very wealthy people, which I'm sure plenty of those people, to your point, plenty of those people would be willing to pay more. They also already do. They do prop up things like our universities. They do prop up our museums. They do sort of pay for wings of things, and they do stuff that already helps our society and takes some pressure off the government. But do we really want a mass exodus of those people and them taking their money elsewhere? So I think it is a huge gamble. I do also think that this smorgasbord, or dog's breakfast as I prefer to call it, is going to be so complicated. We've almost had the omnishambles that we've seen previously before the budget this time round because of the reaction to things that are being touted. And I just don't think it's good for consumer confidence, for house buying, for investing in any way. And I think that stuff is dangerous. So we've really got to sort it.
Well, MPs have massive egos. There's always somebody on manoeuvres somewhere. Whether there's any truth in it or not remains to be seen.
Many of them approached you?
No, no one's approached me or offered me any jobs.
Why would anyone want it? It's such a difficult. I mean, it is. This government can't get it right. They are really struggling. It's an incredible. I mean, people talk about
people do always want it. They do.
But they say they do. But actually, you want it because you want to do stuff. And one of the problems is that this government's finding it incredibly difficult to do stuff. Yeah. So it's not the most attractive job at the moment, even with a majority. When everyone complains your side's very difficult to corral around issues, but having a big majority doesn't make it any easier.
No.